Hello, I'm back again. I thought I'd come back before African American History Month was over because I had a little input. And I want you to think about this. African American History Month. Why African American History Month? It started out with a good purpose. A gentleman by the name of Carter Woodson in 1926 put it together to show the elevation or the improvement of the black race after slavery, the physical and the intellectual progress that blacks have made. And he came up with a Negro History Week. And again, it was a good idea to show progress. And then in 1975, our president, Gerald Ford, he acknowledged it and brought it back into the attention of the American people. And then in 1976, that same president, Gerald Ford, against the will of his Democratic counterparts in Congress and the Senate, he signed it into law, and now we have it for a month. It had been extended from a week to a month, and it has just become probably symbolic because it doesn't do what it started out to do, and that is to elevate the awareness of black progress. Now it's more that separation thing, and all they seem to want to show us is Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. However, I have to say this year it's been very quiet. I don't know if it's because of everything that's going on in our country today, but there's so much going on, it's kind of hard to stop and acknowledge it. But again, I turned against it some years ago because, again, all these shows Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, I have a dream. And with Martin Luther King, my problem was, he had a dream, so that means that you have to be asleep or in jail, the Birmingham letter from jail. So I'm thinking, if black people want to be anything, they want to be like Martin Luther King, and that's go to sleep and dream, or go to jail and write a letter, So, and to me, that didn't elevate things because there's so many other black people in our history that contributed to the well-being of society. My favorite black hero was George Washington Carver, who did so many things. I think 118 products he made out of a sweet potato. That serves the general public. It wasn't a black thing or a white thing. It was something that was good for the country. And all he did with the peanut, and not only that, he was great for the community. This is a man who took his off time, put books in a wagon, and went out to the cotton fields, especially on Saturdays, and taught the people during their break time. When they took a break, he would teach. And the ones who look inspiring, he paid their tuition to go to college, the young black people who were picking cotton, and they had adapted to learning. He paid their tuition. They got to go to college. He didn't have a holiday, and think of the good that he done. And there's another great doctor or scientist who I think would have made a good holiday, right? But Martin Luther King, he got the holiday because he's talked. He talked, and everybody listened, and it sounded good. So that's where we are in America. But Dr. Charles Drew, the gentleman who founded the blood bank and created all these uses and preservations for plasma. I mean, these guys did something that contributed to the country and to the well-being of the country. And there was just a lot of black people out there doing things. I mean, in the 1800s, there were black men who owned banks. There were black-owned banks in 1800s. So now I don't think there is a black bank anywhere, but the people were doing so much there in those days. I should have brought my book with me. Speaking of my book, I wrote, I think, the best black history book in the world because I covered it all. And I covered it all because it piqued my interest to read some black children books that a friend of mine's wife was writing. She wrote 3 black children books, and I'm thinking she wrote more, but those are the 3 that I seen because I purchased them for my daughter. And I read them, and they were about people I'd never heard of before, which piqued my interest. And I went to the library in L.A. You can't find much black history. Either that or I were looking in the wrong place. And I went to the main library down on Main Street. I mean, a gigantic collection of literature. And I couldn't find anything. Where I found the most black history was in Coffeyville, Kansas, at a community college called Chaffey College, and I went to Coffeyville 3 times a year during that time because I was taking care of my family. But I would go to that library and spend my days, and I compiled all of this black information, and I wrote a book, The Will of Man. All of the black history you can absorb in there. And I think that if people would just read history, they would get back to loving one another and just living a life as God intended us to do. I don't think God cares whether you're black or white. I don't think He cares whether you are Hispanic or Asian or no, right. It's just the people, the good of the people. And I think that this Black History Month separates us again from caring about each other because we have a month. Now, if there was a Caucasian History Month, I think the country would go up in smoke because that would be such a racist thing to do, or such a separating, dividing thing. But we can have a black one, and the blacks are smiling and happy because we have African American History Month, which is in itself a fallacy. Because there's only one African American that I can think of off the top of my head right now that is truly an African American. And guess what? You would think he was Caucasian because it's Elon Musk, the most richest man in the world today, is a real African American, and nobody calls him that because he's Caucasian in his pigmentation. So you see, we got everything all messed up, and that's the way we got it, and that's the way we're letting it run because we have been so divided. My plea is to forget about African American History Month and just read history and take people at face value. When they do something wrong, they're wrong. And when they do something right, they're right. And it doesn't make any difference what color they are. So let's look at the heart of man rather than at the color of his skin. I'm not going to go where Martin Luther King went with the character and the color. Just the character is all that matters. Just count on people and trust them until they let you down. Once they show you where they are in life, then you can make your decision from that. But we are one people. And when you really want to know history, get your Bible. There you'll find your history. In the Bible, you'll find that this whole thing started with one man and one woman. One man and one woman. One male and one female. And we all came from that. And when you get to chapter 11, you'll find out how we got to be different because of splitting up and going to different parts of the world. So, God bless American history. And let's study that so that we can come back together as God intended. Think about that.